Well, whilst we're just changing presenters now, I'd like to introduce our next one, and this is Scott Tipping. He's General Manager for Logistics for Hanson, Australia, a national construction and building materials supplier. He's held various positions through his career in operations, sales and supply chain. Peter, I'll just get you to stop sharing if that's all right, please. And Scott is passionate about the role of technology in improving road safety outcomes, and he's worked better at safety outcome productivity outcomes in the Hanson fleet by the adoption of sensible technology. And welcome, Scott. Thank you very much for taking the time to come in today, mate.
Thanks, Jerome. Appreciate it. I assume you can see the title page of my presentation.
Not just yet. I think you'll just have to select and share again, if that's all right.
Yep.
There we go. Perfect. You're away, mate.
Excellent. Thank you. So as Jerome said, I'm passionate about the adoption of technology in the heavy vehicle space. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but also about Hanson's journey in relation to the adoption of technology, and then some of my own perspectives about systems, projects and planning. Jerome, just let me know if you can't see the relevant slide.
All working well. We're good to go, my friend.
Brilliant. So a little bit about Hanson. We're one of Australia's largest construction materials company. We've literally got hundreds of sites around the country. They're on 200 concrete plants, 70 odd quarries and thousands of trucks on the road, including owner drivers. We have a range of brands and a range of other things that go along with that as well. In relation to heavy vehicle safety and safety more broadly and what it means to Hanson, we have 4 strategic pillars, with one of those being keep people safe. And it's worthwhile noting that a couple of years ago, this strategic pillar was keep our people safe. A couple of years ago, we had a good look at that and we had a good think about what keep our people safe meant versus keep people safe meant. And we actually changed that strategic pillar to align with the broader communities in which we operate in. And part of that was driven from the fact that we did have a very good look at the incidents in our business, particularly on-road heavy vehicle incidents. And it was pertinent and important for us that we acknowledge the on-road component of our business. I think that aligns perfectly with the previous 2 conversations, where it's not just about what happens on site, it's about what happens off site, and very specifically about what occurs on the road. And for us, our risk profile, and we understand this just based on the statistics in our own business, serious incidents for us on road account for a large portion of the serious incidents across our business. As I mentioned today, I'm going to talk through some of the things that we've been working on in relation to heavy vehicle safety, particularly investments and philosophies in our business, and some of the things we're aspiring to going forward. But I mentioned I'm also going to talk through some of my own personal opinions on heavy vehicle transport, on industry and industry's contribution or need to contribute, but also how the end user, and in this case projects, has a significant role to play. So for Hanson, and we've got a couple of pictures on the screen here, and the top one here is a tipper with the side underrun protection that's been discussed. And for us, that's been something that we've adopted on our fleet since 2018. And out of interest, Hanson is part of the Heidelberg Cement Group, which is a global organisation with 60-odd thousand employees operating at thousands of sites across the world. And at about the same time, the Australian business adopted side underrun as a standard for our vehicles in Australia. The Heidelberg Cement Group passed a directive to the broader business that was something that they expected to see in new vehicles going forward. The second picture there is a picture of myself and my daughter in front of our 1000th Mac. And whilst we don't just buy Macs, we've got a range of suppliers that supply us concrete agitators, tippers, tankers, and a range of other fleet. This truck was special for us because it was the first truck where we went what Mac termed the full safety pack. So again, at about the same time that we adopted side underarm protection, we adopted a range of semi-autonomous driving aids as standard specification in our tippers and tankers. That included things like radar guided cruise control, autonomous emergency braking, blind spot detection, lane keep assist, etc. The key reason why we looked at that and adopted it was really around the human factor associated with the incidents that we're talking about. And whilst I acknowledge the system piece that we've discussed and the training piece, really from a heavy vehicle perspective, there's a human element that comes into most things, particularly when you look at a driver and distraction and what they can and can't react to in a certain amount of time, and also other road users. That was one of the key reasons why we went down that path. We've conducted an array of trials on a range of different equipment and other technologies. We've currently got fatigue and distraction monitoring cameras in some of our trucks, again on a trial basis. We've looked at onboard weighing systems. We've looked at a range of other things through either our procurement processes, but our normal innovation and fleet improvement programs. And for us, it's important that we're always searching the market, understanding what is out there, and at least trialing it to see what we know and what we don't know, and what potential benefit we may or may not get from the equipment. That benefit could be safety related, it could be productivity related, but generally it's a combination of the two. We have a very proud history when it comes to heavy vehicles and heavy vehicle safety. We've been part of the National Heavy Vehicle Accreditation Scheme since the mid-2000s. Some of the elements here are evidence of our more recent investments and our more recent journey. Our drivers receive regular reports on their driving behaviours, including acceleration and turning events. And it's something for us that we'll continue to push and is a core part of our business. Whilst we are a construction materials supplier, the bulk of our workforce and the bulk of our equipment are either heavy vehicles or heavy vehicle operators. And on that basis, we acknowledge that it is an integral part of what we do. On a personal front, I am a road user. I have a family, and I'm actually a vulnerable road user as well. And I know that is obviously the core topic of today. I am a cyclist. I enjoy getting out of my bike to either ride to work or to ride for fitness. So from that perspective, certainly alert and in tune with what it means to be a vulnerable road user. Also had my own experience earlier this year, and this, particularly my role as General Manager of Logistics with a fleet of a couple of thousand trucks, gave me a real insight into the power, not just over vulnerable road users, but even other light vehicles on the road. This particular circumstance, I was in the Uber on the way to Brisbane Airport on a standard morning, when the truck contacted the rear of the Uber, pulled the Uber into its path, and we actually got stuck on the FUPS bar for quite some time. Again, for me, and the reason why I reference this is just to communicate my own experience. We could hear the truck changing up gears. The driver didn't actually realise that they had a vehicle on their FUPS bar. They couldn't see the vehicle. And once we actually got out of the vehicle and the driver of the heavy vehicle got out of their vehicle, the driver communicated that they thought they'd blown a steer tyre and they were accelerating to pull off the road. 100 or so metres later, realised that we were on the FUPS bar, applied the brake, and we were all very lucky to walk away. Whilst we're talking about this, and I referenced productivity earlier, again for industry, and this is something I'm equally passionate about, safety is not isolated. So you can't look at safety outcomes without looking at productivity outcomes. Likewise, you can't look at safety for a particular situation or scenario without looking at the broader picture. And I'll talk a little bit about this as we go through. I know in certain jurisdictions and local government areas, as an example, there's a tendency to specify smaller trucks or particular size trucks to deliver raw materials as an example. What that doesn't necessarily take into consideration is the increase in heavy vehicle movements in a particular area or along the broader supply chain to ensure that that specification is met. There's a whole range of flow-on effects that can come out by looking at a very isolated piece of the puzzle, and that includes productivity. In the previous presentation, we talked about productivity and we talked about economics. Ultimately, for a program or a journey to be sustainable, the economics need to stack up to ensure that people remain committed and motivated to participate and do the right thing. And if you look at our journey and what we're doing with the adoption of technology and other bits and pieces into our fleet, that is really about ensuring that the productivity and safety outcomes are looked at in conjunction whilst taking into account the human factor piece that I mentioned before. Next thing I want to talk about is the hierarchy of controls. And for anyone who works in the risk space, the hierarchy is something that's quite common and well understood. What I do tend to see in the heavy vehicle space is a diversion away from the hierarchy. Administrative controls, as an example, are a lot easier to implement and a lot easier to commit to than changing the specification of a truck or making a commitment to buy a particular piece of equipment because of what it gives your drivers and the broader community. The reason why I raise this is industry certainly has a part to play by ensuring that we make smart long-term decisions that consider the hierarchy of controls. But the regulators also have a key part to play in this one as well. And something I would reference in this space is something like fatigue legislation, which has a very discrete and prescribed way of managing the risk associated with fatigue, when there's potentially better outcomes if we go and have a look, or outcomes to be had if we look at the hierarchy in its entirety. Again, relating to the previous two presentations, is project planning inclusive of safety outcomes in the project delivery? Simple things like staging areas for trucks, ensuring that trucks have a place to go. Simple things projects and end users can do to ensure that the risk for the operator and the risk for other road users is mitigated. Project planning, and by project planning, I mean the approval process also needs to include this. And again, there's a propensity to approve the development in a CBD area whilst only allowing 1 or 2 heavy vehicles to park on that particular location at any point in time. Depending on the supply chain and the constraints of that supply chain, and if we look at concrete as a key example, having 1 or 2 trucks on site is very problematic, particularly if there isn't a staging area nearby or a location to hold those trucks. You have a plastic product that goes off quickly, and the end result is a group of trucks potentially circling an area on road, increasing the heavy vehicle movements and increasing the risk to other road users in that area, whilst having a range of other outcomes, including environmental impacts. Internally at Hanson, with our fleet, we've been very mindful of prescriptive rules and prescriptive specifications with our trucks. And whilst it's important to set a minimum standard, we also want to ensure that we promote innovation and best practice when we're asking suppliers for solutions and when we're asking suppliers for equipment. Equally, this goes through to any specification coming through to a construction material supplier or a construction logistics supplier. Any rule or program that's put in place needs to encourage innovation and ensure that we're not managing for the lowest common denominator at that particular point in time, but that we're promoting ongoing evolution of the quality of the fleet, of the quality of the drivers, and of the quality of the safety outcomes of the project, full stop. Some examples in this space, understanding that vehicles are where they are at a current point in time, but new technology is proliferating and coming through. Clauses in project specifications that understand that new technology could be incoming, and at that particular point in time, new fleet purchased or employed for that particular project should consider that type of equipment. That enables a project to, particularly projects that have a long life cycle like the Sydney Metro that we spoke about previously, to continue to evolve over time and not manage to the minimum standard that happens to be in place at the time of project initiation. Coming back to productivity and safety, as I said before, are interrelated, and we can't leave it as an afterthought with unintended consequences. We absolutely need to be thinking about the whole picture, and I've specifically mentioned productivity here. Environmental aspects and other aspects that come into the equation need to be looked at holistically. I gave the example before of smaller truck sizes being specified for particular locations. What is the unintended consequence of that? Is it sustainable, and are people going to want to participate for the long term? Answering those questions ensures anything that goes forward has the best chance of success and warrants investment. And that's what we're talking about here. Commercial operators have no issue investing if it makes good commercial sense. And whether it be project specifications, internal specifications, regulation and legislation, productivity needs to be a key consideration, as does other non-obvious aspects that come into the picture. Finally, this is about working together. No one operator, no one project, no one regulator will achieve this in isolation, and this comes back to the consistency that was mentioned in the previous presentation. We need to listen to each other, we need to work together, and ultimately make sure that we're all heading in the same direction. That's really it from me at this stage, Jerome. If there's any questions, more than happy to answer.
Right, Scott, I think we've got time for one or two, and then we'll move on to Marilyn. So thank you very much for that. I really like the point, because it's really got to be done the right way. Like safety is just good business. If it's done, it's balanced out as productivity and those sort of components. We're not talking about, I guess, gold plating or those sort of components. It's about a real systems-based approach and bringing us all along on the same sort of journey. Question here from Graham is saying, look, great to see conspicuity used on your fleet. Have you seen a reduction in incidents since implementing them? That's a very good question, and the short answer is I don't have anything definitive
on that. We still have a large legacy fleet that obviously will work through its replacement cycle. We've certainly seen, take the example I gave before around the driver and the driver scorecard, where we've raised with drivers how they're performing, we certainly see improvement. In relation to the fleet itself, we need more data, and our fleet density is building, and by fleet density I mean density of fleet with that type of equipment is building as we speak. And I'm assuming over the next 12 to 24 months we will really be able to interrogate that sort of information and get a better understanding.
And also, like, I've driven a truck and dog quite often for grain harvest out in regional areas and those sort of components, and I think it's absolutely an amazing task that your drivers do when they drive through an urban environment with just so much going on around them. I think they're incredibly professional. Have you ever had the question here from Len? He's just asking around, is there ever going to be consideration in the construction logistics industry around sort of direct vision equipped trucks at all, do you think?
Look, this comes into that productivity question. I've had some really good discussions with companies like Mack, Volvo and others about this. Right now, the productivity impacts associated with that type of a vehicle in Australia certainly makes them less appealing than some of the other vehicles. Having said that, if you look at some of the cab over trucks that we've got available to us right now, those trucks have quite good vision, glass through the doors, etc. And that type of stuff is absolutely taken into consideration through purchase. We've got a new vehicle we're about to start trialling through Volvo in the next couple of months. It's a UD that has very good visibility down through the passenger side door, cab over truck. And it's also equipped with a whole range of technology, including autonomous emergency braking, lane keep assist, radar guided cruise, and the critical one for me there is integrated distraction and fatigue monitoring. So we're pretty excited about that. I also know that Volvo/Mack got a trial unit going in with Boral as well. So between Boral and Hanson, we are looking at new equipment in that space and consistently looking at it as well. This isn't an afterthought. I've actually got a role in my team called Fleet Engineering and Innovation Manager, and it's his job basically to search the market, find stuff for us to test and see what we can find out.
That's fantastic to hear, and the fact that you actually work with the other major, with Boral as well, and sort of in driving that forward. So thank you so much for your time, Scott. We've got a lot of other questions here which I'll hold through to the end, so don't disappear, and thank you for sharing your personal story as well as part of it.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jerome. And I should say, in relation to that, that's ultimately Volvo working independently with Boral and Hanson,
Yep.
which for me is a great endorsement of what the OEMs are doing out there to try and drive technology and improvement in this space as well.
Yep, I think that's a great point. We can't forget about those sort of guys and how those sort of organisations helping improve safety as well. So fantastic. All right, Marilyn, we'll bring you up now. So thank you very much, Scott.